How do you capture a high-value target when the entire world is watching? The answer lies in strategy and illusion. Everything carefully staged. The CIA created an operation based on distraction, using a single building as a decoy, while more than 150 aircraft filled the skies. The intense noise worked as a sonic curtain, allowing helicopters to silently insert Delta Force units onto the ground. Within seconds, the area was completely illuminated, tearing through the darkness of the night. When visibility returned to normal, the aircraft were already on the ground, and the target, President Maduro, had vanished without leaving a trace. It all began in August 2025, when a group of CIA agents was secretly inserted into Venezuelan territory. The movements of Venezuelan President Maduro were tracked with hour-by-hour precision. At 10:46 p.m. on January 2, 2026, Donald Trump officially authorizes the operation. At around 2 in the morning, the United States government gave the green light to initiate Operation Codename Absolute Resolve, and in the middle of the night, Caracas plunged into darkness. The U.S. Armed Forces launched a wave of missile strikes across the capital. Bombs were deployed from 20 different bases and naval vessels, triggering a sudden blackout. Just a few hours later, by 5 in the morning, the president of Venezuela was no longer in the country. While global attention focused on U.S. aircraft carriers in the Caribbean, the United States was conducting a sophisticated distraction operation. The spotlight was on the sea, but the real confrontation was happening silently, in the streets and behind the scenes of the capital. This was not a large-scale invasion, but a precise and highly calculated action, a surgical extraction. Phase 1. Planning. This operation was the result of months of preparation. Gradually, the United States increased pressure through a strategic naval blockade around Venezuela. A carrier strike group and a ready amphibious force remained positioned close to the coast. Washington began treating the Venezuelan government as a threat linked to drug trafficking, focusing its efforts on the regime's key criminal leaders. While naval forces restricted maritime access, U.S. intelligence maintained constant surveillance on a single strategic target. Second phase, the offensive. At the exact moment the clock struck 2 a.m. local time, the operation went into motion. At high altitude, stealth-capable F-35 aircraft penetrated hostile defenses, degrading air defense systems and clearing the way for the mission to advance. Russian-made S-300 surface-to-air missile systems were positioned throughout the region to defend a site considered critical and of high strategic value. Once these threats were neutralized, the airspace was opened, allowing Delta Force helicopters to proceed directly toward the target. This is the moment when the deception strategy came into play. As the assault aircraft moved in, fighter jets intensified strikes against key targets, including the Fortuna base, the main military command center, and La Carlota Air Base, severely compromising Venezuela's ability to respond from the air. Eyewitness accounts on the ground reported multiple detonations and a sudden breakdown in communications. The chaos created was not the end goal. It served as an essential cover for the operation's advance. But how did the operation unfold on the ground? This brings us to the third phase. Taking advantage of the darkness and widespread confusion, top-tier Special Operations Forces began their incursion. Responsibility for the action fell to the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta Force. Surprisingly, FBI agents from the hostage rescue team were also integrated into the mission to carry out Maduro's arrest. 11 U.S. helicopters from the elite 160 SOAR Night Stalkers led the assault, and they were transporting approximately 300 special operations operators. The team departed from the U.S. Navy amphibious assault ship USS America, positioned just a few kilometers off the Venezuelan coast. Residents of the capital reported aircraft flying extremely low, nearly brushing the tops of buildings, staying below the reach of radar detection systems. The flight was conducted at very low altitude, about 30 meters above the Caribbean Sea, to avoid enemy radar detection. The aircraft then crossed a dangerous stretch of roughly 16 kilometers over land from the northern coast to Fort Tiuna. As the air assault crossed the capital, explosions began erupting behind them. The assault group breached the defenses of a fortified complex identified as a secure location within the vast military area of Fort Tiuna. Invading this complex was an extremely high-risk mission. The teams moved with extreme precision, touching down at multiple strategic points simultaneously. But the decisive moment, the capture and extraction of the target, was yet to come, leading us into the 4th phase of the mission. The soldiers disembarked from the helicopters and advanced directly toward the residence inside the base where Maduro was hiding. The final location required nothing complex. Intelligence agents on the ground helped guide the team through the compound. Faced with such sudden and overwhelming action, the target was left without reaction. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were then transported to Chinook helicopters for extraction. After the capture, Maduro was safely transferred to the U.S. naval fleet. There were no American fatalities, only minor injuries. We will also examine why Washington chose the F-35 for these missions, leaving the F-16 out of the front line. The operation involved F-22 Raptors, F-35s, F-A-18 radar aircraft, and B-1 Lancer bombers, totaling around 150 aircraft. Venezuela had built a highly sophisticated defense system combining Russian S-300 surface-to-air missiles, Chinese origin radar sensors, an integrated Russian air defense network, and surveillance and attack drones distributed across strategic regions of the country. The United States avoids employing F-16 fighters in modern operations because these aircraft lack the stealth characteristics required to operate safely against contemporary air defense systems. In environments protected by S-300 missiles and other integrated layers of air defense, the exposure of F-16S would be extremely high. The F-35, on the other hand, offers decisive advantages in this type of environment. Its stealth design allows it to operate with a low probability of detection, significantly reducing risks even when facing advanced surface-to-air missile systems and modern integrated radar networks. Beyond stealth, the F-35 stands out for its sensor fusion, electronic warfare capabilities, and advanced data links. These features enable the aircraft to detect, disrupt, and strike both fixed and mobile air defense positions simultaneously, rapidly adapting to counter Russian and Chinese radar configurations. As these aircraft neutralized much of Venezuela's air defense network, a strategic window was created that enabled the CIA and Special Operations Forces to advance toward the primary target. Air superiority was the key factor that ensured freedom of action on the ground. However, an important logistical question arises. How do these aircraft maintain the pace of operations? After all, the distance between Puerto Rico and Venezuela is approximately 1,300 kilometers, requiring precise planning, aerial refueling, and continuous coordination. This distance is equivalent to roughly 810 miles, which translates to about 1.5 hours of flight time for an F-35 operating at high subsonic speed. These fighters conduct continuous rotations, leveraging a combat radius of around 770 miles, which allows them to reach much of Venezuelan territory from Puerto Rico, provided there is strict control over fuel consumption and limited loiter time over the target area. To extend mission duration and reach deeper inland targets, aerial refueling tankers are strategically positioned throughout the Caribbean region, ensuring sustained operational support for the air forces involved. In scenarios requiring near-immediate response, U.S. Navy amphibious assault ships equipped with F-35B fighters offer an even faster alternative. From these naval platforms positioned in the Caribbean, the aircraft can strike targets inside Venezuelan territory in as little as 10 to 15 minutes, depending on route and speed. Potential targets include drug trafficking networks, air defense systems, command and control centers, and drone-related facilities. This posture goes beyond counter-narcotics operations. It reflects a broader deterrence strategy, prepared to decisively neutralize any Venezuelan military threat if necessary.
Soldier, tired of losing your strength on the battlefield? If you stayed until the end, you deserve to know our exclusive recommendation. Discover it right now in the pinned comment.